Do you struggle to learn Blender? It's probably because you're trying to learn it the normal way. That is, open YouTube, search Blender's tutorial, and immediately get overwhelmed. Or maybe you tried the other normal way. That is, go to college, do the work, get the degree. That's normal. I did it too. This is me receiving my Bachelor of Animation and 3D Modeling. 3 years of work, 9 long trimesters. I was a quote-unquote 3D pro. But then I go to Blender and I try to animate a character, and I realize I literally don't know how to animate a character. This normal way to learning 3D is broken. Not only broken, it doesn't work. But what if there was a different way? A complete guide personalized for you that, if followed, will actually make you a 3D pro in Blender. Well, there is, and it's called the Set Framework. This is the exact blueprint that I would follow if I was starting completely from scratch with 3D. It'll take you from noob to pro, and it's what 99% of people miss when starting with Blender. So let's break these levels down one at a time. Level 1, Select. This level is all about creating the foundation of a pro, building your base before even starting Blender. If you have no knowledge of 3D, there's no way that this is going to make any sense to you. It's kind of like your first day in Skyrim. Hear me out. In Skyrim, you start off with a backstory.
Finally awake.
You get to spend time building out your character, and straight after that, you're thrown into chaos. For Blender, it's basically the same path, except there's 2 crucial steps missing: backstory and character. Without these, you literally can't navigate the chaos. By definition, it's complete disorder and confusion. This is why step 1 is arguably the most important step in the entire blueprint. And that is step 1, why Blender? Why do you want to learn Blender? Seriously, what? Why? For some people, it's, I want to learn 3D for game dev. I want to earn some side income with 3D. I want to make VFX for movies. I want to be a lizard and become Dragonborn. Whatever it is, figuring this out before touching Blender will ultimately set you up for success. Without your why, there's no strong reason for you to do the thing, which leaves you with 2 options. You'll either fail to learn Blender, or worse, you won't even pick it up to begin with. The reason I'm telling you this is because choosing your why is crucial. But thankfully, it's so easy to do when we utilize the way system. It takes 3 steps. Here's how you do it. Step 1, wonder. This step is about exploring what got you interested in 3D. Maybe you saw some cool motion graphics, or maybe a sweet animation on the big screen. Whatever it is, find what inspired you and use this time to document that. For example, my inspiration was mostly video games. I'm talking Blinx the Time Sweeper, Jet Set Radio Future, and of course, don't say it, Skyrim. Once you've gathered all your inspiration, put it into a folder or a mood board, somewhere easily accessible, because we're going to need it for step 2, analyze. Now I'd want to look over each of my inspirations and start asking myself, what do I think I want to pursue from these? Maybe I really like the cel-shaded textures from Jet Set Radio. Or maybe I'd want to learn about environment art from Skyrim. Take some time on this step and really dig into what jumps out to you. It may only be 2 or 3 things. That's totally fine. Just note them down and put them to the side, because now we're going to combine these with step 3, yield. With both of these equations solved, we basically know our why. We just got to dig it out. And the easiest way to do that is with this. It's a circle. But when you put 2 of these together, with the exploration in one and the assessment in the other, something magical happens when you start to combine them. The middle starts to overlap, and the reason, or your why for Blender, becomes crystal clear. There's so many ideas that start popping out of this thing, and you really only need one that resonates with you. To make it super clear, you can copy this sentence structure to help figure out your why. Not gonna lie, this is probably the hardest part of the blueprint. Not to say that it's hard, it's actually super easy. But nobody does this. And simply by choosing something, anything, you're going to be leagues ahead of everyone else. I mean, I had this one guy that was like, I want to make Minecraft thumbnails so my videos perform better. But having your why is only half of the puzzle. There's still one major piece that, when connected, will skyrocket our progress for learning Blender. So, what is it? Step 2, domain. Having your reason why for Blender is amazing, but choosing your domain is what will set you apart from the average person. We don't want to jump into the chaos of learning Blender, because what would we learn? There's no direction yet. Having a domain first is so important, and a lot of people just skip this step entirely, which actually causes them to fall into the biggest trap when learning Blender. It looks like this. Everyone starts their journey here at rock bottom, knowing nothing about Blender. Then they jump into the chaos, thinking, yeah, I'll learn modeling. They follow some tutorials, learn the basics, and their confidence is sky high. They think they know it all, but as time goes on, they learn new concepts like sub-D modeling, edge flow, topology, hard surface. This overwhelming amount of new knowledge kicks them down here to what's called the Valley of Despair. This is the trap. This is where most people give up, or worse yet, start the cycle again. They say, oh, it's too hard. I need something easier. Let me try animation. Okay, so they start again. They jump into the chaos, learn the basics, learn the not so basics, and wind up exactly where they left off. This happens over and over again, which ultimately makes zero progress to the thing they actually wanted to do to begin with. So, how do we fix this? How do we climb out of this hole and stop the cycle? Well, it all comes back to the title of this step: choosing your domain. Okay, but like, what is a domain? You keep saying the word domain, but what the fuck does it mean? What? Remember Skyrim? Oh my god. We've got the backstory, but now we need to choose who we want to be. We need to select our character. In Skyrim, there's 10 playable characters, all with specialized skills and abilities. Maybe you want to be a Khajiit. Maybe a lizard. Each one has pros and cons, but selecting any one of these will change the way you play the entire game. It's the same for Blender. And these characters kind of represent the 10 major domains of 3D. Lighting, animation, modeling. You get the idea. Selecting one of these major skills will not only tell you what you want to learn, but more importantly, what you need to learn. This is also known as choosing your niche. Okay, but how do I figure out my niche? We haven't even touched Blender yet. I know, we're about to. And the quickest way to selecting your niche is by using the map method. It looks like this, and it starts at the top with stage 1, muster. Here we want to find all our inspiration and dump it into this theoretical bucket. And if you followed step 1 of this blueprint, this part should be super easy. The top level holds everything we find interesting about 3D. Nothing's filtered out yet, until we open the gates to stage 2, assess. We want to now identify all the tools and skills used for each piece of inspiration. For example, Blink's the Time Sweeper. This is my childhood game, and there's so many skills that bring this thing to life, like modeling, texturing, and animation. But we're not choosing any of these yet. We just want to figure out what skill excites us the most and filter out the rest. And we do this by opening the final gate to stage 3, plot. With your why statement at the ready, we want to match all these different skills to it. If any of them don't align with this sentence, get rid of it. And once you do this exercise, the bottom of the bucket will open up, and one domain, your niche, will basically be chosen for you. This process is so powerful. It simplifies the selection of your niche, and better yet, completely destroys this trap that a lot of beginners fall into. But having both of these puzzle pieces is kind of meaningless if we don't actually apply it to the final step of level 1. And that is step 3, quest. Now that the puzzle is complete, we need to look at the overall picture and ask ourselves the simplest question. What do I actually see? I've got my reason why, I've got my niche, but what does this actually form when put together? The overall puzzle picture is, and should be, blurry. So how do we focus it? Well, it's honestly way easier if I just... No, don't do it. Just do anything else. Anything else, please, for the love of God. In Skyrim, there's one ultimate mainline quest. Become Dragonborn. As you progress through the first few quests, you learn that you're this super rare person that can absorb dragon souls and literally cast magic by shouting. As time goes on, you realize becoming Dragonborn isn't actually your quest. The main quest, the pinnacle of the entire game, is to stop the world from being eaten by a dragon. The reason I'm telling you this is because the blurry puzzle pieces are actually just a blank map. And to make sense of it, we need to plot out our quests, or in other words, choose our goals. Without goals, there's no real path for us to follow. And if we jump into the chaos now, we don't know where to go. Like, we've got a pretty good idea, but there's no heads-up display, no quests. We're basically an NPC waiting for some kind of action. So how do we figure this out? Like, what's the best way to set our goals? Well, there's two options to doing this. And honestly, we already have a super solid foundation. I mean, 99% of people don't even have the map to begin with. The first option looks like this, and there's 5 stages. Stage 1, define. Here, we just want to set up a list of clear and specific goals. And since we already have the thing we want to learn, the skill we want to pursue, and the reason why, this part is so easy. I'd recommend making 5 goals to start with. And the main key is to actually write them down. None of these notion lists. You can be as bold or as vulnerable as you want. Like, this isn't something you're going to show anyone, okay? Unless you leave it lying around like in Skyrim.
Oh, what is this?
Stage 2, why? Ask yourself why you want to achieve these goals. Here's just a few questions to help you figure it out. The reason is most likely going to be very similar to your main reason for learning Blender. That's fine. Do the exercise anyway, because having a deep understanding of the reason for your goal is so important. It's honestly priceless. If you don't have a reason for any one of your goals, you may as well just delete it. But having these goals alone isn't enough. Like, how do we get from here to there? Well, this is where we move to stage 3, action plan. Simply put, this is just planning the path to achieving the goal. What do you need to do in order to get there? For me, I'm trying to animate characters. So the easiest thing to do is just work backwards and figure out each major milestone. That's it. Stage 4, deadline. This is exactly as it sounds. Setting a deadline for these goals not only creates this sense of urgency, but it also helps you build out a timeline. This way, you're not going to take like 15 years to do the goal. Plus, you also get to see where you should be at any given time. Stage 5, review. Every goal on your list probably isn't equal. And there may be some that are just straight up not even goals. Like, for example, learn Blender's user interface. You can do that in under an hour. Our goals shouldn't be these meaningless tasks, but they also shouldn't be these insane, unachievable ones either. This stage is all about reviewing and adjusting your goals regularly. I'm talking like once a month. So doing this not only makes the goal easier, but it usually makes it faster to achieve as well. That's the super quick rundown on setting your goals. But there's actually a second method that I think is way better. It's called the habit stack method. And once you understand how it works, it's mind-blowing. Let me give you an example. 2 animators set up 2 identical goals. They have 1 month to complete and showcase their work, and they're at the same skill level. The first guy knows exactly how long each goal will take and sets aside 1 day to crush them. Whereas the second guy, he sees the goals differently. Instead of stacking up 1 day to get the work done, he works on them every single day. At the end of the month, they both meet up to show their work, And the first guy is tired and confused. He's got 2 animations, but this guy has 5. Do you see what I'm saying? Not only is this guy's work going to be better, but his skill and goals are going to exponentially increase. This is the habit stack method, and it's just a simple mindset shift. If you change the definition of your goals from outcome to activity, it's almost impossible that you're not going to reach your goal. Because think about it, your goal is just an output that happens after a certain amount of inputs. And if you're inputting every day on repeat, this causes 3 things to happen: skill increase, goal achievement, and a killer habit. It's super simple, and the reason I like this option way more is because the tracking is night and day. Did you or did you not animate in Blender today? If the answer is no, then you're not hitting the goal. And if the answer is yes, you're hitting it. I'm just realizing now that this video is weirdly philosophical. And if you're still watching, congrats. Because now we're getting to the fun stuff. We've got our foundation built, our puzzle piece map is complete. Now we just need to follow it. And we do this with level 2, Enhance. This level is all about how to actually learn Blender. No, I'm not going to list off hundreds of different YouTube channels that cover a wide range of topics and skills with no actual guidance or meaningful discussion to help you. I did that last year. Instead, I'm going to go through the specific systems, frameworks, and tools that I would use if I started again. And step 1 is maybe my favorite system for learning anything. I've learned more using this system than I did throughout my entire bachelor's degree. So, what is it? Step 1, play. Blender, the program itself, is inherently boring. Like, it's hard to look at this screen and think, and it gets worse when you actually start using Blender, because most of the tutorials look and sound like this.
Hey guys.
So what do you do when the only option to learn is borderline torture, and the only alternative is to spend thousands of dollars on courses? Well, I reckon I found the solution. And it happened while I was doing the most boring activity I can think of. Chess. This monochrome checkerboard is the pinnacle of boredom for me. I could do literally anything else and have fun. Anything. I'm watching paint dry. But in 2020, something insane happened across the entire globe that I don't think anyone was ready for. Chess became mainstream. Massive streamers started playing.
No, I did miscalculate.
Huge tournaments were being held.
Oh, exactly. Wait, what the?
And to top it off, Netflix dropped this banger TV show. It was all anyone could talk about. And one day, I found myself logging into chess.com. And this is where everything changed for me. Instead of a boring checkerboard, I had an exciting game. Achievement unlocks, sound effects, trophies, leaderboards, daily challenges, league points. League points? This was amazing. Complex problems and learning was no longer boring to me. I wasn't running away from this. I was actually seeking it out. The reason I'm telling you this story is because this step is all about play, and this system is called gamification. Now, obviously, chess itself is a game, and I'm still really bad at it. Like, please don't look at my games. Holy shit. But we can use this gamification system for Blender. And trust me when I say, it'll make the learning process actually fun. Okay, but like, how do I do that? Like, how do I make Blender into a game? Well, it's actually a pretty simple process, and it's done in 2 stages. Stage 1 is create. We want to build a game that would actually be fun to play. I'm talking XP, level ups, achievement unlocks, and we do this by setting up a simple structure like this. Each box represents something different. One for habits, one for daily tasks, one for major goals, and one for rewards. All you need to do now is fill these out. And because we have our map from level 1, we can basically just copy paste a lot of this stuff into it. So for example, my boxes would look something like this. And if I reach a goal, I'd get a set amount of XP and gold. Or if I do a habit like open Blender, I get an XP point. Okay, but like, how do I use this? There's no character, XP levels, visuals. This is just a fancy to-do list. There's no game here. Well, that's the problem. You can't actually make Blender a functioning game without having something that speaks to it. It's not a game engine. But I found the game engine that does this. It's called Habatica. It's completely free, and it does everything in stage 1, but for real. There's character creation, level ups, achievement unlocks, sound effects. You can even buy weapons, party up with people, complete quests. There's a pet system. A pet system. This is literally a video game for Blender. Just for fun, I've made a party, so if you want to join me on some quests and learn 3D while doing it, you can. This system of gamification is priceless. And if I had it from the beginning like you do, it would have saved me so much time. Holy shit. Now that we know the fun way of learning, we actually want to learn, because this whole system is kind of pointless if we don't put it into practice. And these next 3 steps are exactly how I would approach learning if I had my gamification and foundation in place. So what are they? Step 2, advance. This step is officially when we can start learning Blender. And since we have this insanely solid foundation, we should know exactly what we need to learn. But there's one massive problem for this section of the blueprint that I think a lot of you will face. And the easiest way for me to explain this is with Skyrim. When Skyrim came out, I spent an unhealthy amount of time playing it. I'm talking 12 hours every day. It was like an IV drip of pure dopamine, and my 15-year-old brain was loving it. But one day, I wanted even more fun, and I found this video, an infinite power glitch, and oh boy, did it do just that. I was one-shotting giants, dragons, the literal final boss. This was incredible, for about a day. Because to quote the video itself, this ruined the game. This is exactly the same for Blender. Rushing the learning stage and trying to find cheap tricks to look like a pro, it's not going to end well. There are no shortcuts. Trying to do this will ultimately ruin the game. Because if we try to rush the process, or worse yet, cheat the system, one of 2 things will happen. You'll burn out, or you'll quit. That's why this step is called advance. We don't want to blitz to the end and pretend like we're a pro. We want to advance through the stages of our goal so that we can become the person who can achieve that goal. Do you see what I'm saying? For this stage, since it is all about first steps with Blender, I'd spend some time doing the absolute fundamentals, preferably in this order: Blender basics, niche fundamentals, intermediate concepts. And after about a week of initial Blender experience, I'd look at my goals and see if my path needs to be adjusted. Every week following that, I'd do it again. And around this point in the process, your path should be really solid, which means we're ready to learn the next concept in the blueprint. And that is Step 3, side quests. Now at this stage, if you're 2 to 3 months into your learning journey, tutorials become boring. There's no creativity. You're just following steps like a factory line. Sooner or later, you're going to want to put your skills to the test and step outside your comfort zone. No more mindlessly watching how to make animation 10 times easier. So how do you break out of this cycle of watching and copying? Well, it's kind of like side quests in Skyrim. Nothing? Just do it. In Skyrim, our map has a beeline directly to the main quest. But every now and then, there's these smaller quests that pop up, and they usually lead to these little caves on the side of our path. If you accept the quest and complete the cave, not only do you get some XP, but you also get a bunch of items and rewards at the very end. These caves are like weekly projects, and doing them is so powerful. Because you don't just get a sweet project once complete, you also get to learn a ton of new stuff while you're doing it. Okay, but this isn't Skyrim. No one's just gonna give me weekly projects to do. You're right, and choosing them will ultimately depend on you. So instead of doing your daily practice, take a week and switch it up to a larger project based around the stuff you know. For example, you've probably seen one of these videos where I make a project in 24 hours. The concept is stupid. Do not do this. But choosing these 3 projects was actually super similar to the way I do it for a weekly one. It literally takes 3 steps. Find a subject, use it with your niche, and give yourself a constraint. This combination limits what you can do because, I mean, you got a week. It's not a lot of time. But having this combination is actually what allows you to do the project in a week. If you're really struggling to figure out what you want to do, just steal some ideas from a community Discord and match it to your niche. Kaizen's got a monthly prompt. Clint has a weekly one. There's so many ways to do this. The main thing is to just do the project with the skills you have. Problem solve as you go, and only watch tutorials if you really need them. Trust me, I literally learned the concept of a null object in this video all on my own, and I will never forget it. Now we can move on to the final step in level 2, the pinnacle of learning Blender and potentially the most powerful concept in this entire video. So, what is it? Step 4, synergy. At this stage, we've got all these core concepts down and we should be pretty deep into our map. But now the problem becomes, how do we close this remaining gap between here and our goal? The pathway is shorter, but the challenges are way harder. Well, the answer is skill trees. Please hear me out. In Skyrim, there's loads of different skills that you can level up as you play the game. Once you get enough XP and reach a certain level, you can open the skill tree and unlock perks. These are like upgrades, and they make the overall skill way stronger, which ultimately makes everything else way easier. Instead of running head-on into a giant camp and getting yeeted into the stratosphere, I can take a step back, learn stealth, and literally one-shot them. This is the concept of skill stacking, and it's one of my favorite things to do and talk about, because it essentially lets you close this remaining gap with just a few moves. Let me give you an example. 2 animators are trying to join a lead animation studio. They both have the same experience, projects, and they apply at the exact same time. Both are identical on paper, but once they submit, who do you think is going to get the job? Obviously this guy, and it's simply because he skill stacked. Both of these animations are literally the same, but because one of them had great lighting, compositing, and rendering, it's an instant win. And to be honest, the other guy probably didn't even get looked at. The point I'm trying to make is having a synergy of skills is invaluable, but all of this is meaningless if you don't know where to start. We already chose our skill tree at the beginning, and all these other ones have like 0 XP in them. How do we level them up? Well, wouldn't it be nice to actually have a specific skill tree? One that you can open up and follow for modeling, texturing, and animation? Yes, it would. And my friend Derek actually made one recently. This guy is a freelance pro. He's working with massive brands, but he's also got 5 original classes on SkillShare, and they're basically a mini skill tree. This learning path jumpstarts your modeling, texturing, and my favorite, animation. He walks you through everything you need to know about animation in under an hour. Plus, since this is SkillShare, if you want to learn other stuff like sculpting, or even some of my classes, you can. Because SkillShare has literally thousands of classes made by industry pros on things like cooking and animation. It's awesome. This video is sponsored by SkillShare, obviously. But if you're one of the elite 30% of people watching this right now, you can get all of this for free because SkillShare has hooked me up with an amazing offer for you. The first 500 people to use my link below will get a 1-month free trial of SkillShare. It's limited to 500 people, so if you missed it, sorry. But in all seriousness, clicking that link really does help support the channel, and it lets me do this whole YouTube thing for you for free. Click the link below, and thank you to SkillShare for sponsoring this video. Level 3, Thrive. Having these core concepts and frameworks is amazing, but to actually become a pro, We need to do more than just put it into practice. We need to show it off and build something for ourselves. And this is exactly what step 1 is all about. Building a name for yourself online, especially as an artist, isn't easy. Whether it's getting discovered or even just posting your work, it's kind of scary. But doing this exercise of showing your stuff online is one of the best things you can do to increase your skill. Let me give you an example. 2 artists meet up to show each other their latest piece. This is their magnum opus, and they've worked on this for over a week. Artist 1 says, "Hey Smeaf, great artwork. What do you think of mine?" Artist 2 says, "Hey Smeaf, great artwork. What do you think of mine?" He's speaking to a mirror. Without showing your stuff, you're essentially in an echo chamber, and this does way more harm than good. I'm speaking from experience. Look at these renders of mine. These are objectively shit. You can ask anyone. This is clearly amateur work. But if I sat in that echo chamber and told myself it was good, I'd never grow as an artist. And honestly, I'd probably still be in there. This is so important to do. And if you're afraid of posting, just do it under a fake account. It'll get you comfortable with doing it, and you can always just change the account in the future. So now we know why to post, but how do we build our name? Well, it's the same way you build out an art gallery. If I walked into the Louvre Museum and saw this next to the Mona Lisa, someone's getting fired, okay? We want to treat our professional portfolio with curated, polished pieces. Not this. So now I'd set out to make 3 to 5 of my best pieces and showcase them in my portfolio. These should be high-lift projects that showcase your skills to the best of your ability. You can host your portfolio on something like Squarespace or Behance. It doesn't really matter. So now that our online foundation is solid and our portfolio is sorted, we can move on to step 2, evolve. At this stage, our map should be pretty much complete. But just like Skyrim, it can get kind of boring if all you're really in it for is the story. You complete the thing and then you just turn it off and forget about it. Remember that trap I mentioned in level 1? Once you're in this stage of the blueprint, you're technically in another trap. And it's this peak here. We've successfully climbed out of the first trap, but now we're in this weird intersection where our progress plateaus. So what do you do when you don't know what to do? Well, I think I found the solution. It's a secret system that every one of the big 3D creators are using right now, and it lets them upgrade their skills infinitely. It's called the Forge system. Anyone can do it. It's 5 steps, and it looks like this. Step 1 is find. When we find something new in 3D, it's pretty common that you want to try it out. This step is all about that. All you gotta do is find or learn a new method that lets you create something awesome. That's it. Step 2, operate. With this newfound knowledge, we want to now create the thing. And it could literally be anything. Maybe you learned that you can create simulations with null objects, like me. Whatever it is, take some time to create it, because now we want to show it. In step 3, reveal. We already know showing our work is super important, but doing this with the Forge system is completely different. We're not looking for pity likes or followers. We're looking for specific feedback, usually along the lines of, "Oh my god, how did you do that?" The moment you see this, or even if you don't, it's time to initiate step 4, grow. This is where everything comes together. With our new creation, we want to break it down and explain exactly how we did it. Again, we're not doing this for attention. We're doing this to solidify the new technique and grow our skill set. If you can't explain a method or concept easily, it's probably because you don't understand it yourself. So doing this actually forces you to learn it, and it's weirdly addictive. Step 5, evolve. Now that we've done this once, all we want to do is quite simply repeat. This concept and system is incredibly powerful. And I don't know if you've spotted it yet, but this is actually a flywheel. Each action feeds into the next, which creates this amazing loop effect of endless learning. And don't take my word for it. Look at all these huge creators who are actively doing this. If you strip this thing down, it's really just a method of teaching, And honestly, it's one of the most powerful ways to actually learn. Now look, I get it. It's not easy to do this. And it wasn't for me at the start either. If you're more of a shy guy, you can take the alternative route to teaching, like Twitter threads with in-depth breakdowns, Instagram carousels, or dare I say it, text-to-speech AI.
Hey guys, welcome to my Blender channel.
Wait, what? Wait, no, that's definitely not supposed to be in the script. Now, let's be real for a sec. This blueprint isn't perfect. It skips a lot of steps, and there's no exact instructions, but genuinely, following this guide from day one would have changed my entire life. And I know for a fact it can help you too. Now you might be asking, Smeaf, what about this last step? Well, I saved this one for last because it's the biggest problem I see 3D artists make when trying to monetize their work. And if you want to actually make money with 3D, you'll want to watch this video right here.